Yeah. Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Monday morning business meeting of the BOCC. Our Jessica from Human Resources is out doing other work this morning, so she's not available. So we'll just head right into budget. Kathy.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Weber.
Morning, Kathy Funk Baxter, Budget Manager. And today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our budget restrictions in our budget. We have what's called a budget tree that's utilized to determine budget restrictions. And so I'm making a recommendation to continue some work that was already done but not implemented, and to maybe make a few tweaks to that. Currently, our current state is we really only have 3 restrictions. We have direct labor, just that one category, expense category. Then we have fund balance, which is all of the different types of fund balances. And then the third restriction is everything else is all together, lumped together as one restriction, which includes benefits, services, supplies, transfers, things like that.
Could you explain for the public what a restriction, what's being restricted and in what way?
Okay, so if an expenditure comes through and the budget, for example, was $100 and the expense comes through and it was for $200, if there's a restriction, then it would say you've exceeded your budget, and it would not allow that expenditure to be processed until the budget's been amended or such.
And so there were 3. Could you just briefly go through the 3 again? The direct labor.
So there are 3 current restrictions. There is direct labor all by itself, one expenditure category. Then there's fund balance, which is a number of different fund balances, but all of them is one category. And then everything else for expenditures is all together as the third category, which is benefits, other labor expenses like overtime, things like that, supplies, services, transfers.
Okay, thank you.
Would you kind of characterize these as audit control type things?
Budgetary control, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And to help with proper planning of expenditures. In my history, I'm not used to all the other expenses, the other labor categories, the benefits to all be together with other expenses. That seems unusual in my experience. So in 2019, work was done by the IT department. And that's the next slide that says budget restrictions draft of programming done in 2019. And in this category, they were being more restrictive with the categories a bit. They still had direct labor all by itself. They had all other expenses, excluding benefits, because benefits was its new own category, and transfers was its own new category, and debt was its own new category. That was not implemented. The work was done, but it was not fully tested or implemented in January of 2020. And then my My,
On that a question,
Yes.
do you know the reason it was not implemented? Actually, two parts. What was the impetus in 2019 for this and what caused it not to be implemented?
I don't know why it wasn't implemented. I have to assume that a lot of the work was done by Kim Hoyt. And Kim went out on maternity leave. This was when Kirk was responsible for the budget in the administrative services. I have to assume that there was a lack of enough time and backup support to implement it. So, but I don't really know.
Yeah, thank you.
And then my recommendation is if the commissioners would like to place additional restrictions, to actually do a little bit of a modification based upon some things I've already seen. In direct labor, my recommendation would be to expand it to more than just direct labor, because you have overtime, you have extra help. And in some cases, overtime is a result of having vacancies, and therefore they don't have the full budget capacity to draw upon those funds from the vacancies to help cover the overtime if it hasn't been budgeted high enough.
Okay. So you're suggesting we put all labor in the labor category?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's what I'm accustomed to seeing.
Yeah.
And then everything else is pretty much the exact same way that it was programmed prior, but was not implemented. And my recommendation is to implement this the beginning of a budget year, which is January 1, 2024.
I do like your suggestion on lumping the labor, because essentially, if we were to start the universe again, we would say, how much do we think it's going to cost us to do the job? And so that just makes sense. It doesn't distinguish between overtime or not.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also I have another example of a department that had to pay some severance payments. And so those severance payments have now come out, but weren't budgeted. And they're actually impacting their ability to use their other expenditure categories because it's reducing the budget in that area.
How would you plan to handle that?
So that too a severance payment would come out of the budget for all labor cost. And so they would be able to draw upon salaries, vacant salary funds. So on a severance payment.
We would then accrue this over the years, for example, or over a couple of years, in the sense that when I leave, if I have vacation time and sick leave, there's a payout. You'd like to put that in so we really know what our obligations are.
Yes.
Okay, so that means you'll have sub accounts under there and all that. Okay.
I'm assuming one of the advantages of doing this is that we don't have the massive number of budget amendments all jammed up at the tail end as we do what we could have been doing all along, had we had a little more flexibility.
Correct. Now it is a little less flexible because before a department may have had some positions vacant and therefore they weren't paying as much in benefits as what we budgeted. And those benefit dollars have always been summed with all other expenses. So it gave them budget capacity to be able to use benefit dollars for something else. So it takes away a little bit of flexibility in that sense.
Well, I know over the last several years, we've been looking at the vacant positions that have never been filled, but they're always budgeted. And this makes it a little bit more transparent for us that those vacancies are true vacancies rather than budget strategies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I like your thoughts on it, Kathy.
I like this a lot
Yeah.
and I'm quite appreciative of that.
Yeah,
I've consulted with Kim to see about the program, if we could bring it back up and implement it and without a lot of extra work. And I think they're very supportive of that.
so you have about
ideas.
6 months. If you
Mhm.
find any squirrels you need to get rid of,
Test
they'll be
it.
ready to
Mhm.
go. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I like, it sounds like we all like it, so.
Okay, so supportive of.
Now,
of this
you were
change.
talking about restrictions. Do those restrictions require formal action from us, or is that just part of our support for you as
Yeah.
you organize the budget this year?
That's part of my support for me. And then when we formally adopt the budget, I assume that we also are formally adopting all those budgetary restrictions at that time.
So I think you may find a culture reality that may take a little while and working with, just to get the information out and explain why, particularly for folks who've been they've just had different budget strategies.
Yes. And so they're having a payroll and accounts payable workshop this week. And I was planning on presenting this once I had your support. So I try to also get the word out to all the department heads and to the finance managers.
Great.
I assume this makes it easier for the auditor to trap stuff then.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think tracking wise, we have all of our appropriate accounts and bars.
Yeah.
It doesn't change any of
Oh,
that.
okay, thank you.
Mhm. And then the only other thing I'm working on right now is a budget amendment, well, two things, budget amendments. And then I'm working on a monthly report for you for the month of May, and I should have that to you very soon.
Okay.
How soon do we see the next amendment?
We are going to, I'll have it ready. It'll be a public hearing for July 18th. And on July 10th, I plan on at my business session, bringing you a draft of the budget amendments.
Appreciate it, Kathy. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I don't see Marin online.
Oh, she's back there.
Oh, sorry, Marin. My fault.
No.
There it is. Good morning, Rand Fox, Director of Corrections. The population today is 215. We had 47 bookings over the weekend. I don't have a lot to report, but of note, currently we have 11% of our inmate population on a detox protocol. We typically were in the 5% range. So while our population is not as high as it once was, more of the people that we're booking are requiring detox, and most of that's fentanyl.
I didn't quite hear what you said about some kind of a protocol.
A detox protocol.
Oh, detox.
Detox
Oh,
protocol,
And
which
you're usually at 5% and
Correct.
now it's bumped up to 11.
11%. And when they're on detox protocol, that means they're getting medically checked 3 times a day, vitals, medication, symptoms, and all of that. So it is a pretty significant difference. I'm not sure if we'll continue to trend up, but I think that's of note. I met with the chiefs and sheriff last week, and we spoke a bit about the Blake decision or the Blake fix and how that's going to look. I think they're still working through the details. That will go into effect, I believe, August 16th. Longview passed an ordinance to do something sooner, but I'm not sure that they're actually going to. And I know they've been meeting with the judges in district court and are looking at perhaps a misdemeanor drug court option, but I don't think the details of that are worked out either.
So, excuse me. So just to be sure I understand the numbers, out of 215, you've got 11% of those on detox. And how does that compare with any past history?
It looked to me like we were sitting at about 5% 6 months ago.
Yeah, but maybe 3 years ago?
I'd have to look. I can pull those numbers, but it is significantly, the reason it came to my attention is because we have to have separate cells for them because they require a higher level of medical care. And so
Okay.
I noticed that we're using more and more cells for detox protocol, which is why I started to look at it, but I can dive deeper into the numbers.
Any just off the cuff breakdown? This is primarily opioids,
Primarily fentanyl.
but no,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
The detox protocol
Yeah.
for benzos and alcohol is actually more intensive for the first 24 to 48 hours, but primarily most people are reporting fentanyl use.
Fentanyl. Yeah.
I don't know if it means anything, but the numbers don't surprise me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Neither. The only thing we're seeing different with fentanyl, and it's pretty new in the industry, but their symptoms, like their vitals, are not significantly worse, but their mental health is worse. They feel a lot worse mentally. They feel like they're not going to make it. It is a more intense detox than we had seen with regular opioids with heroin.
Now looking forward to the next weekend, an extended long federal holiday.
Mhm.
Do you anticipate an increase, or in the past have holidays kept everybody away from breaking laws, or is it an incentive to be more careless and thoughtless?
I think it depends on the holiday, but the 4th of July isn't one of the low ones. That would be
One of the,
one of the low ones. That would
Low-
be
oh,
typically
okay.
higher. Christmas, Thanksgiving, you're not going to see as much, but 4th of July and the heat and all the activities, yeah, we typically see an increase in population.
What, I know you have issues there where with mental issues, and now I'm seeing this detox protocol where it takes down your number of beds. So
Mhm.
just out of curiosity, what's the effective limit we sitting at right now?
There are a lot of variables. That'd be difficult to
Yeah,
answer without really looking at what cells we have available. I looked this morning, I think we had one cell that was vacant in our mental health unit right now, medical mental health unit, but every other cell in the jail has at least one person in it. And we don't house detox people alone typically unless they're combative or unable to get along with people. We do house them together. The housing is often because medical needs more access to them because they're having to check them so frequently.
Yeah, but we're not at threat of being at limit.
No.
Yeah, so.
We shuffle people around and make it work towards the end of each week, heading into the weekend, we move and I mean, we're having to come up with creative things I give a lot of credit to our sergeants. They're the ones that are operating it day to day and figuring out where to house people, but it's not without challenge, but we're making it work.
Yeah, great.
As a follow-up on that, the minimum would be however many keys you have for individual doors. How many is that?
I believe we have 77 cells.
Yeah, okay.
Most are, so our capacities, I have 354. So most of our cells are built for 4 to 6.
Right.
Right. I think we have 11 singles.
Yeah.
So if we detox 77 people, we're in trouble.
Right. Yes.
DOC,
DOC is very low. We only have one DOC only today.
only one?
Only one today. Yeah.
Have you had requests for handling more?
We're open to 4 a day, so they're able to bring us 4. If they're an inmate we can't handle long-term, we have them moved the next day, but we have been accepting the bookings. There are some DOC only bookings we would probably say no to just based on capacity, that they would take a single cell and make it unavailable for local bookings.
And the limit of 4 per day, that's not in a contract, is it? That's just an agreement.
That's correct. An agreement
Okay.
we came up with last year sometime when we were struggling with housing. We do have our contract with DOC is expiring at the end of this month, and we're working with them to get a new contract before the board. shortly.
Okay, who is heading that up?
I am,
Okay, it was pretty well drawn out last time, right?
right? It's really the same contract. It just factors in the 5% increase that's allowable by.
Okay, and there have been issues that I've heard, and because I sat on the Law and Justice Council a long time, I thought, I do not see where you become the dumping ground for lots of people. That's more or less on parole or supervision, so it doesn't directly affect you there. Do you have an opinion on that?
You mean the exceptions, the.
Right, the 6157
Right,
or
correct. While those numbers, we see them monthly, I don't see that as a great impact on the jail.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
either, but okay.
No, I don't think that affects us
And
terribly.
how are we doing on ICE issues? Are there any?
ICE? Immigration?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? We submit just the allowable information to ICE, which is pretty limited. What we can submit to them, we can't share a lot of information with them. We would accept on an ICE detainer that was signed by a judge or magistrate, which has been the case for years. You just don't see those. So.
Right. Have any of those issues come up in the past few months?
Not that I'm aware of. No, I've not heard any complaints or
thank you.
requests.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kim Hort, IT Director. And I would like to formally introduce Mike Bamford. He is our IT Deputy Director. And so I would like to welcome him to his first public meeting.
Mike?
Welcome aboard.
A recap of events that we've been working on is policies. So the retention policy is a little bit more complex than I originally anticipated, and I'm still working with legal and the retention committee finalizing things. We have engaged in several discussions. I have kind of a mashup of the Kickatas County and then other policies that I'm trying to fold in, addressing email and other aspects such as like storing files on desktops and stuff like that. So it's kind of turned into an elaborate conversation with the IT team and the retention committee. So I'm asking for a little bit more time in regards to that policy.
How can we help you? Because this retention policy has been an issue for a long time. And it just seems like moves along in time. Is there anything we as a board can do for you?
Grant me some more time. Like I said, I'm developing the policy with legal and a few others. It's just turning into more complex than I originally anticipated. So.
Okay, when you say you're developing the other policy, I assume the different entities come to you and say, this is my view of the world. And then you sort of try and put that all together kind of.
Yes.
Okay, and make sense out of it. Okay. What's your expectation of how soon we might have a draft? And the evil question after that is, how long is it going to take us to implement that? You probably can't answer that latter, but I'm always interested.
I would say I need another month to get that finalized. So the end of July.
So I infer from that you're close.
What was that?
I infer from that a month away for the retention policy that you're close.
Yes. Like I said, it's a mashup. It's not necessarily anything I would present to you guys today.
And if it works out like you suspect, because you've been thinking about this for a bit, how difficult will that be for us to implement? Just sort of your wild guess.
I don't have an answer for that. I don't know at this time. A good segue is we are doing a business analysis to kind of identify our disaster recovery and business continuity and what the department impact would be if we were to have a network or some type of breach to where we lost our data. So Mike and I are developing a strategy and are looking to work with each department to articulate what their business needs and what the business impact would be. So we spent the last week diving into some of the questions and strategy that we will have for that.
I could go more. Mike, have you seen retention policies before?
Yes.
Okay, so do you have a fair idea about what tools you would need?
Yeah, I think Kim has the tools and is working on it. But yeah, I've seen it before and I feel like we're on the right track and the team is working on it, getting that put together.
From a budget standpoint, we've been spending quite a bit in IT, and I'll always argue that's because we ignored a lot of issues for a long time. But I still like to know, so as soon as either of you can say, we think we don't need more capital or we need more capital, and then working with our budget manager, figure out where that comes from. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I'm okay with, going forward another month, as you asked.
I appreciate that. We have 2 open positions and we are reviewing applicants. We reposted the positions, kind of refreshing those postings online. So we're reviewing the candidates that have applied. That's for an IT technician along with a developer position.
Could you tell me what the developer's expertise is in or will be in or you're looking for?
Sure. This is for developing in-house applications. So for example, Budget Boss, Law Hub, those were previously developed internally. And this would be the position to support those kind of applications along with web development and integration between our various applications.
I think this is an area where it's not something you constructed. We've inherited a lot, but it strikes me as that we've got a lot of counties that have this similar issues. And whenever we hire developers, I think I have to ask, let's be sure we're on the right track. In many instances, if we know that there is a county out there that has all these things done, one, can we share? And if we can't, sort of think about an exit of our position. And I'm not talking 6 months, I'm talking 2 years, 3 years, where we can come together and not be this island that spends a fortune on developing special interfaces. Because they're just a maintenance nightmare, as you all know. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then I don't have anything else to report.
Okay. Thanks, Kim. Right. Thank you. Dana, coroner?
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Right on. Okay. Morning, Commissioners. Dana Tucker, Cowlitz County Coroner. I took this last week, this last week to try and compile some statistics and stuff that you guys had asked for, plus some
If you
more.
could come much closer to the microphone.
Can you hear me? Is that better? Okay. I took last week to try and compile some more statistics and put some information together for you guys. So what we were addressing was a contract with another pathologist in lieu of our normal pathologist's absence or inavailability. So this is just to utilize actually any other pathologist when we need one, when Dr. Nelson is not available. So Dr. Kiesel, Dr. Luxina, and Dr. Quinn are all at the same rates. So earlier I was told that they were a little bit more, but diving into it, they're all at the same rates for autopsies. They're all on a fee for service. That means they're traveling pathologists, any county that needs a pathologist for an autopsy to be done, they call, and if they're available, then they go. Those are the fees that they charge. As I mentioned before, Washington State and actually all nationwide is very limited on pathologists right now. As a board for the association, we are trying to work on remedies in order to attract other pathologists specifically to Washington right now, so that we're not having such a shortage of them. But that's in the works. The thing for an agreement with Dr. Luxina was only, so I was noted that we needed a contract with a pathologist, although it's just a fee for service, like I would utilize any other person, any other pathologist when Cliff is not available. Dr. Luxina was willing, he does Thurston County, Grace Harbor, Mason County, Lewis County, and then was willing to be, try and be available more for Cowlitz County. The other two are not available as much. Dr. Quinn works mainly out of Thurston County and is doing multiple autopsies each and every day. So she's very limited and very hard to get a hold of. She's also kind of working in Skagit County. So all of these pathologists are running very, very tight schedules, and they're all working very, very hard and very long hours. So they're limited on what their availability is. Dr. Kiesel is trying to retire, so he's also cut back. That leaves Dr. Luxina more available for the other ones. And he's noted that he would come down here. We did talk to one of the other pathologists that is going to be going out on her own. She is not completely yet. And then we have the amounts written down there on there for you. So she would be at 2,100 for autopsies, and then the babies and homicides would be a little bit less. But again, I don't have any control over the prices the pathologists charge, or who I get. It would just be basically calling when I need another pathologist, when our main one is not available, to see who is available. So that is that portion. Did you have any questions?
How many, I think you told us before, and it was a low number, how many pathologists in the state? There's not a ton.
So with being a coroner's office, we're lucky to actually have Dr. Nelson contract with us, but he's not always available for everything. And then I gave you an attachment of his agreement here. And if you notice in September 29 of 2020, it was amended up to $7,500 a month for 48 autopsies in 1 year. And that's good through October 31st of 2024. So as he reaches his quota, then he'll end up going on to a fee for service, or actually he does not have to do any more autopsies for us. He's not saying that he won't, but that's that part. So then we have the other pathologists too.
Can I ask where and I'm not, we do a lot where we have people back up other people, so I'm not
Yeah,
going down that road, but I see this number 48, but then I'm seeing from, and this was from your predecessor, Tim Davison,
yes,
gave us stuff in September 29th of 2020.
yes.
These services are all inclusive and unrestricted in that the county is not limited to the number of autopsies that are conducted. So, and then I see the number 48, and I haven't piled through the original contract to see where that's coming from, or if that's something the doctor has said he's only going to do.
No, so this is how I take it, and everybody else that's looked at it has taken it the same way. So it's up to the 7,500, and then on the second page, under information, 48 autopsies, examinations in 12 months, and with a certain amount per year, which his is up to the 90,000 a year, or $7,500 a month, which if you divide that up, it's for 48, it's about 4 autopsies a month.
Okay, so it looks like they came with the annual based on what has been done in the past, or
Yeah.
his experience.
Mhm.
Okay. Just trying to get around the discrepancy I saw there.
Yeah, and I was just presented with this. I didn't have the full thing last time I was here. So he provided that to me. So I could bring that in and show you. So also with autopsies, as long as we're accredited, which we are, and we're in the process of being reaccredited by the end of this year, our autopsies, every autopsy that we do, everything included in that autopsy, meaning toxicology, the techs, histology, all of that type of stuff goes in, and I do a spreadsheet for each thing. And the total of that is we get 40% of the total of each autopsy back from the state every 6 months. So from January to July 1st, the end of June, I do one reimbursement, and then from July 1st to December 31st, I do another one. So we are seeing some of that cost coming back to us. Now, also with that, and that's in, if you turn to I think it's the 4th page, I put the RCW on there. RCW 6850-104 states that the county shall bear the cost of the autopsies. And then it also goes on to state that we get 40% of those autopsies back from the state, and then 100% of every child death under the age of 3. So anything we do on them, we're getting reimbursed for 100%. So we are seeing some of that funding coming back to us.
Coming back. And I was reading through some of trying to educate myself a little bit this morning, and there was talk at one point in time that was going to be raised to 45%.
Yes, I can't remember the number, but it was supposed to be raised. I don't think it has yet. I think it's still, I think it might be this next year. But I'm not sure if it's this coming year or the following, but yes, it's supposed to go up. So, and there's
So by next year, that's July 1st. That's the beginning of the state fiscal year, right?
no, I believe it would be the January 1st is when everything should start over, but I'm not exactly sure. So, and then there's 18 pathologists statewide, but a lot of those pathologists are within a medical examiner office. So the medical examiner office is appointed and they have their own forensic pathologists. And then the other ones are just traveling pathologists, and we're really low on those.
So 18 pathologists, what do we have? 38 counties,
Yeah.
something like that.
Right.
Now I'm looking back at 10 of,
39 counties, and most of those pathologists are within the medical examiner offices, which we have seven now. So, and then all the other ones, coroner, no other coroner office has their own pathologist except for us. So, and then we also contract with Wahkiakum County and Pacific County so that they can have somebody close by. And then with that, they get charged for the usage of our facility and the usage of our techs. Also, I would like to point out that for the other pathologists, it's so their full autopsies are 2,100. So if you calculate, divide 48 by 90, it's 1,850 for Cliff Nelson. So that 1,850 is just for him. It is not for the 2 techs that we pay each time we have an autopsy. It doesn't go into histology, anything. Those are all extras that we pay. Now, with the other traveling pathologists, some of them do their own histology. So that's not an extra cost to us. Some of them pay their own tech. So that's not at an extra cost to us. So looking at the numbers, they're not as much more than Cliff, but when you add them all up, what we're doing now is probably ends up being about the same, if not a little bit more. So.
okay.
So I think I calculated, so if you take 90,000 for the pathologist and 48 autopsies, we're paying 54,000 for that pathologist. The state is reimbursing us $36,000 on that. And then 100% on all child deaths. So, and then I mentioned the other 2 counties, they pay for the usage of our facility and the tax fees. So we're also getting reimbursed back from those. There are some other counties that are needing a pathologist, and we're in discussion with the one pathologist that I just talked about that is kind of retiring from one area and going out on her own. She doesn't want to necessarily travel, but preferably utilize our facility for autopsies for other counties, which wouldn't be at any expense to us. We would actually be making bringing in some more funds for the usage of our facility. So, and then also helping the other counties that are in desperate need of pathologists too. So.
The last, I guess the area that I'm really only get most concerned with, because that's the area of responsibility I'm kind of stuck in. And I realize you inherited it and didn't have input into it, is the budget. And I understand you and Kathy are kind of working through what the discrepancies would be. So
yes.
I'd be interested in what this does to ending budget. The fact that you have a backup, we use that in other departments. I don't have that's not an issue to me. Where I try to pay attention is budgetary type things.
So the original budget for the last couple of years has been 168,000 for professional services. We were granted 80,000 for this year. So Cliff Nelson's contract is 90. So we weren't even granted enough to cover his cost. But also with professional services comes a lot of other things. Comes toxicology, comes histology, comes x-rays, which we have our own x-ray machine. So, and it is up and running. We also have Stericycle, the biohazard. We have, I don't have that list because that was on it's on a breakdown for the whole budget thing. But Christy was working on all the breakdown of everything to go into professional services. So none of that was taken into consideration for the professional services. But yet we were granted $10,000 less than just the pathologist. So, you know, we're trying to do what we can in each field. And I know this isn't the budget cycle, but just a little bit of what I'm dealing with. I look at finances. When we came in, we didn't have any uniforms or anything like that. So I didn't go to the normal sites and stuff where you order uniforms. I'm very conscientious when it comes to that. Even though it's not, say, some people could say, well, it's not my money, I don't care. Well, I do care. I'm not going to come to you guys asking for something that I don't need or don't think that, you know, or just go on and spend money, you know, without looking at other costs and seeing if we can cut the cost and find somewhere else, you know. So we have been able to get some uniforms and stuff like that is probably half, if not more than half the price that they would be at a normal place where everybody else shops for them. So I am conscious of that. And I'm trying my best to cut costs and stuff. When it comes to autopsies, it's really difficult. That's my job, is to find cause and manner of death. And a lot of times when I'm going into a case, I have to decide whether an autopsy needs done or not. And I'm trying to, like most places, follow the forensic standards for when an autopsy needs performed or not. And that has a lot to do with their medical history. I don't want to get into a whole bunch, but I can't justify skipping an autopsy if somebody doesn't have any medical history just because I think it might be a drug overdose. For instance, I'm dealing with some that have been pended, death certificates that have been pended, and they're coming back to me now, and they didn't have medical history, but they're just looking at one side of things with suspected drug overdose, or, you know, they've been doing drugs for a long time, so it's most likely a drug overdose. I can't bank on that, because when I get a toxicology report back and it's not high enough, yeah, they have stuff in their system, but it's not high enough, then in my opinion, we're not doing our job to find the cause and manner of death. Now you're just guessing. And to me, that's unacceptable.
Couple more things on budget and then I'll let it go. Assuming, is this going to be, and I'm kind of directing this to you, Kathy, part of what you present in July? Yeah, because I know you reached out, and I want to say I wasn't in office very long, January, February, and thought there were some discrepancies, and we felt there was a change coming. We knew Tracy was going one way and we were bringing somebody else in. So we kind of kicked that can down the road, and maybe in hindsight we shouldn't have, but it's, we're working on that. So July, we might see some of that. Okay. Okay. That's my budget stuff.
I've got a whole bunch of questions. It's a very easy one is the limits on reimbursement. Are there any from the state? Like if you say an autopsy cost $100,000, will we get 40% of $100,000 back?
Yes. So anytime we do an autopsy, each autopsy that we do, I track that on a spreadsheet. And so it goes for 6 months. So the beginning of the year to the end of June. And then I submit that one. So every autopsy, anything that we do for that autopsy gets put on there and then gets calculated out, and we get 40% of that back.
I'm not sure you understood my question. So like you said, you can't do anything about the cost of an autopsy or
Yes.
Or at least the price you pay the doctors. But is there an upper bound on that? So will we, no matter what you do, what assurance does the state have that we're not very sloppy with autopsies and charging twice as much as the norm? So,
Well, like, I guess maybe I don't understand everything correctly. The costs of the autopsies for the forensic
no,
pathologists.
not autopsies, a single autopsy.
Okay,
We could we could say we spent $5,000, or we
Mhm.
could say we spent $100,000 on that autopsy. So I'm asking, does the state return us 40% of the 100,000 for that single autopsy, or?
yes, I guess they would, but it's, so what it is, it's a breakdown. So,
Oh,
You-
I understand. I don't
Okay.
need the detail. I just wanted to know, is
Okay.
there a limit on the reimbursement
No.
for a single autopsy? So they'll pay anything we charge.
yeah, so we have the breakdown of the pathologists and then the histology costs. And so I put in whatever the bill is for the histology, whatever the bill is for the
Understood.
genetic testing and
Understood.
tox and all of that stuff. So whatever it is at the end, that is what we would get back.
Okay, that surprises me, but I'll make a note of that. And then one thing that confuses me is, what is the purpose of the coroner? So the fundamental purpose, I thought, and so I'm asking you to say
Okay.
this is true or not true. The coroner takes a look at a death and decides whether there was some, let me call it,
Suspicious circumstances.
yes,
anything
and
not
then
normal.
that's it,
Yes.
because the teaching hospitals and the hospitals do their own autopsies based on their own needs and programs and curiosities. You know, we're not involved in any of
That's a
those.
clinical autopsy.
Right.
Mhm.
We're not involved in any of those.
No.
Okay. And then if I look at past autopsies, in 2020, we did 32.
Mhm.
21, we did 38. In 22, we did 63. And in 23, we're on schedule for doing 98.
Yes, so that has a lot to do with the overdoses that we're seeing.
I'm sorry, can't hear you.
That has a lot to do with the overdoses that we're seeing. We're having a lot of younger people that are coming in with no medical history, suspicion of drugs, whatever. We can't bypass not doing an autopsy on somebody that we do not know what they died from. Right now, the overdoses are, so let's see here, we're at 19. They had 38 overdoses last year, just for 22. 13 out of those 38 were fentanyl related. We're at 19 with 5 of them pending, but all of those came back with other stuff. So we're sitting at 17 out of 19 of those are fentanyl overdoses right now.
So on an overdose, could you describe high level what the autopsy does?
The autopsy is going to look to see if there's anything else going on in case we get that toxicology back and it's not high enough, like I have seen lately. So some of the pending tox comes back and the amounts that are in their system is not high enough to have killed them. So I have nothing to go on. I can't answer those questions for the family. I can't answer and speak for the decedent of what they died from. They may have died from a cardiac related something. It could be that they have used drugs for a long time and it's just their internal organs and stuff are shutting down because of the damage that has been done to them.
But at that time, I refer back to your statement on what the purpose of the coroner is.
To find cause and manner of death.
Only if it's suspicious, you use the word.
Not if it's, our jurisdiction, so I did print off the RCWs for you there of what our jurisdiction is over, if you want to read through that. that tells you exactly what our jurisdiction is over. Our jurisdiction is not over natural cases. But if somebody comes into our care and they don't have any outstanding medical issues that they have been diagnosed with from the doctor, then we're required for forensic standards to perform an autopsy. We do an autopsy and we find out they have, coronary artery disease, they've got major cardiac issues, stuff like that, but it's undiagnosed. We would never know that without an autopsy. For instance, I had one that we thought was a drug overdose, but she didn't have any medical history. We did an autopsy on her and she ended up with a pulmonary embolism. She had had knee surgery. Her levels for the toxicology came back. She did have a little bit of meth in her, but nothing to kill her. If we had not done that autopsy, we would not have known that she had a pulmonary embolism.
So the thing I'm struggling with is I did not think the county had responsibility for doing anything other than discerning between foul play and other natural death, if you will, like an embolism.
Okay, so our job is to find cause of manner of death. We go out to the scene, we decide, okay, well, nothing looks suspicious. This person, 90-year-old grandpa or whatever, he doesn't go to the doctor very often, but he might have a few things. We're probably not going to do an autopsy on him if he doesn't, he hadn't fallen, nobody's neglecting him, stuff like that. We look at multiple things. We look at the scene, we look at witness statements, we look at their health history. If there is no health history, then I have nothing to go off of. And we know something happened to them, whether it does look natural, if it doesn't look suspicious. And here it states that we have to do our due diligence to find the cause and manner of death. If I don't have something to go off of, if I go to a scene and everything's consistent because they have congestive heart failure, they have coronary artery disease, they've got really bad COPD, something like that, that's something that we would look at and we wouldn't do an autopsy on. But if I go to a scene and there's absolutely no medical history telling us why they died, that's our job to find that out. That's the job of the coroner.
It's interesting because nothing is clear, black and white. It's a judgment call. I think we must do the best we can to pursue foul play, but I recognize it's a judgment call. So I have to reconcile past histories of autopsies and decide why there was a step function now. And I take a look at articles across the nation, and I copied some aspects of it, and basically autopsies are way down. Even hospital autopsies are way down.
So hospital autopsies, the coroner will take jurisdiction if there is no medical history on them.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
So the coroner will take jurisdiction over somebody that dies in the hospital under 24 hours that does not have any medical history. We'll take jurisdiction over that. That is our job to do an autopsy to find out.
Sure.
A hospital only does autopsies when we release jurisdiction, meaning there's a reason for it. They do a clinical study of, say, they want to know how advanced the cancer was, or, something like that. We have a reason why they died. They're on hospice. Well, the family wants to know, well, why? But that's called a clinical autopsy. When they have a diagnosis, when they have a terminal illness, but somebody wants to look at how advanced it was, or if something else could have changed. Our job is when there is no medical history to back up the reason why they died.
I think you've said that more than once now, and I understand that. It
Okay.
doesn't need to be repeated. How many of those how many deaths in the hospital have you taken charge of?
We have not taken charge of that many that come from the
No, not
hospital.
that many doesn't count.
I don't know. I don't have those stats.
Have you taken any?
Yes, we have.
But you don't have an inkling whether it's 2 or 5 or 10?
Well, that would be one that I did not run. Okay, so probably about 12.
So 12 of the deaths at, say, St. John's have been taken over to your office for an autopsy?
Yes, because they don't have any medical history to suggest or to say why they died. And that, again, falls under the coroner's jurisdiction.
Wow.
We're having a lot of younger people dying.
I beg your pardon?
We're having a lot of younger people dying. And, you know, middle-aged people that don't have history. So,
Have you drawn any conclusions from those 12? Do we have an angel of death at the hospital? Is that what you might suspect?
what was that?
Do you have an angel of death at the hospital that you might suspect?
There's a lot of people that die at the hospital all the time. 12 that come to us is really not that high. We've had some infants, we've had some younger people, we've had motor vehicle accidents. Those all fall under our jurisdiction and we have to take them. That's our responsibility.
Just out of curiosity, the sidebar, where do these autopsy reports end up? Like if I'm at OHSU, will I get to take a look at this and say, wow, Cowlitz County is doing a lot of good autopsy work. Let's take advantage of what we've learned.
So our autopsies and postmortems are confidential. So their primary care physician can get a copy of that. They can, but not just anybody can get that. It's all confidential.
Okay, of all the autopsies you've done that seem to have no cause in advance, have you found anything that was referred to the sheriff or to the prosecutor?
We do homicides. They're always involved in those.
No, I know. I
Yeah.
just asked you, of all the autopsies you've done, of people that had no clinical history or no medical history, how many of those were referred? Did you find a cause to say, oh, I better get the sheriff to take a look at this?
I can think of one. And it was a neglect one,
And it was what?
a neglect,
I didn't catch that word.
neglect,
Neglect.
abuse. Yes.
Okay. That wasn't from the hospital though, right?
No, that one was not.
Yeah. Okay, so of the 63 autopsies done in 2022, do you know the breakdown of who did those autopsies in terms of doctors?
Cliff Nelson did, and then I think there was a couple from Dr. Kiesel, and I thought I had a report on an email for Dr. Quinn, and the email that I had found from Brett was to Dr. Kiesel, and all he required him to do was fill out the vendor form and not a contract.
Yeah, so did Dr. Nelson perform more than 48 autopsies in 2022?
Well, in 2022, it says 63.
Right. So we
And I
had,
think the majority of them were him. But with those, some of those are calculating the other counties that are utilized also. And I did not break all of that down.
yeah, I'm trying to figure out whether the 48 is a hard number that is viewed by Dr. Nelson. And
Basically, they go off of the 48, and I know that when I was here too. The 63 is probably also with the other counties. I know last year they did multiples for Yakima County, and they did multiples for the Yakima and Pacific and Wahkiakum County. So, and I did not
I-
break those down. But he put them in our system, showing that they came into our office. So it will pull those numbers, and I did not break those numbers down. But they did probably a good 12 or so autopsies just for Yakima County last year. Not considering the other two. But when I do pull up the report on the computer, it will generate all of those because he input them into the computer.
when I see numbers, I think these all must have come from you. To date, we have 487 deaths. Is that the right number?
So 2023, we are at 543 deaths so far. 487 are natural. So those are either ones that we went out on and found out that they had medical history. We had a reason for why they died, or if they didn't have any medical history and we did an autopsy on them,
So
or NJAs.
the total 543
Yes.
is what kind of deaths?
The 543, yes, that reflects on our deaths. So the ME cases, the ones that we have taken jurisdiction of, is 161. The NJAs would be hospital deaths that we release, hospice, nursing homes, stuff like that. That's 382.
So of all the deaths in the county, what percentage have become autopsies?
I don't ever know what's going to be an autopsy until I go out to a scene and look at the scene, the circumstances and their medical history.
No, you've got the number of deaths reported that you're counting. I'm saying how many
Yes.
of those, what percentage of those end up being autopsies?
I don't know. I don't have the percentage.
Okay,
I didn't, well, hold on. So 2022, all the autopsies are right there. So we're at 49 right now.
so it'd be 49 out of 543?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then I also contacted a few of the other counties to see what they're at. Everybody seems to be up on their drug overdoses. A lot of the other counties follow pretty much the entire standards, and they do probably more autopsies than I would think that they need to do, but that's up to them. So our autopsies are up because of the lack of medical history and the drug overdoses. That's what it's up from mainly. Other people, they do every motor vehicle accident.
Okay,
We don't do every motor vehicle accident. We look at the circumstances. We're going to mainly do the motor vehicle accident if they're not the ones at
of the 49 autopsies of this year, can you give me the breakdown of that one? Who did those?
Cliff Nelson and Dr.
By numbers.
No, I did not break them down by numbers. Actually, Manny Luxina has done 8.
Anybody else?
No, because I wasn't able to get anybody else.
So 41 were done by Dr. Nelson.
Yes. But then actually with those, there are 8 Pacific County, 1 Wahkiakum County, and 3 Lewis County. Dr. Luxina is, or
What
doc-
you're saying there is those aren't part of his contracted 48.
no, well,
Yeah.
they had with Wahkiakum County and
Because he
Pacific.
probably has a
yes.
different contract with them.
So Lewis County, no, he charges them separate, but how they have done it in the past is Wahkiakum County and Pacific County go off of ours.
Oh, go off of ours. Okay.
Mhm. And then they are billed through us, which I have upped the amount because they weren't billing them very much. So I've upped the amount for the autopsies that we're doing for them.
So 2022, the total deaths was 979. That we're looking at according, and in 2023 to date, we're at 543. So
Mhm.
we're about the same pace as the prior year in terms of deaths.
Yes.
Okay, and yet the autopsies are going to be, number is going to be considerably higher. And one thing that's curious, how often do you bill the state for autopsies?
Every 6 months. And we're coming up in July. Will be the first one for the first half of the year. And then February 15th, we submit for the last half of the year.
Okay, so currently we've gotten I'm puzzled. In 2022, we received revenue of 16,730.
Yes.
That was for,
That was probably for the first half of the year. I'm submitting for the first half of this year and the last half of last year because I did not have anything to go off of. And I had to recreate everything from the end of last year. Plus the office being so busy, I didn't have time to sit down and just work on that. So I have that and I have the first half of this year. So we will be seeing those reimbursements all at one time.
what is the revenue received to date in 23 of 4,800?
Or, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
4,800 has been received to date in 2023. So I just want to be sure we're talking about the
sorry.
same kind of
Yeah, we're
billings. It just looks like a strangely small number.
48, I'm sorry, where are you seeing that?
Revenue received to date, 4,800 at the bottom of the email I have in hand that I got from Kathy.
Oh, I don't have that. I don't have that sheet. What?
I don't know who it's from. It could be from possibly.
Okay. Yeah, it could be off of some of 4,800, you said. So those are probably the billings from Lewis County, Wahkiakum County, and Pacific County's autopsies.
That would probably be,
But it
Full
should be, it
autopsies.
should be more than that.
yeah, should be a lot more. than that.
There's still some outstanding invoices out there that have not been billed or that have not been paid yet.
Okay,
But it averages about $2,200 to $2,500 an autopsy per county.
per autopsy.
Yes.
It doesn't matter which county, right?
Yeah, they're all billed the same.
Right. So it's not, okay, never mind. I'm done, but thank you.
Anything, Dennis?
Nope, I missed the original discussions that you had, so I'm assuming those questions have been answered. It's
I just have a curiosity question. It really has not a whole lot to do with this, but you made a comment that you're seeing, how did you put it, more younger deaths or deaths in younger people? What, and when you do those, what did we find? Are we finding anything that,
Some of them are overdoses and
Oh,
some of
okay.
them, yeah, a lot of,
sort of relates back to drug use?
yeah, we are finding some that don't have anything in their system, and we have one that's pending right now, and it may be undetermined.
Okay,
And then there's a couple others that have, you know, gone back to like the pulmonary embolism or cardiac related issues that they didn't know that they had. So.
Yeah. And I was looking through the list where the state says when you have to do an autopsy, and a lot of them, families can request. Are those part of these numbers, or is that a?
We don't do, so what happens if a family, if we release jurisdiction, then there's a reason for it. So they have medical history, everything is, there's nothing suspicious, we release, you know, and we're not going to be liable for an autopsy or responsible for an autopsy. A lot of times family will come and say, I don't know why, you know, they died, they were very healthy, blah, blah, blah. And we get their medical history back and they've got this huge list of issues and there's nothing suspicious. So we're, well, they don't qualify for a forensic autopsy. We don't do clinical autopsies. We only do forensic ones. So
Okay.
they don't qualify for a forensic autopsy. The family, if they want an autopsy done, they can have one done, but it will be at their expense.
But then that goes into the clinical category.
Yeah, so, and we're out of that.
Okay.
So, we usually let families know if you want one, you know, you would have to get a hold of a pathologist and set that up with them, but it would not be out of the county's funds.
Okay. Just wanted to clear that.
Yep.
Okay.
Dana, when the commissioners approved building the new morgue, the goal was to become a regional facility to provide services. We had done that earlier, but this was going to be kind of a ramp up, a regional system. So theoretically, the costs that you charge for the use of our facilities is subject to economies of scale. That is, the more autopsies we do, the less you can charge each person and still pay for our expenses. Have you gotten to the point yet where you've been able to kind of advocate that we're a regional facility and that, you know, we have a great capacity of service, people can use it if needed to? Or, I mean, I know it's been a tough transition because you didn't get any help from the previous administration. So do you anticipate doing any of that regionalization?
Yeah, the board, the majority of the counties, the association was not in favor of a regional center. So when this morgue was built, they were not on board with that. Right now, with the lack of pathologists and the lack of them being able to, the 3, maybe 4 now that are able to do traveling, most of them don't want to travel places. So, such as Yakima County or whatever, they would bring them over here. And we can start doing that with some of the other counties, having them bring them over here and having one of the other pathologists that is the one that's coming out of another place and going out on her own, where she can stay here locally and have them come to us. And we would be bringing in revenue that way. Did that answer your question?
Well, we still have the facility and I'm hopeful that it can be an asset. Another promise that was made was that this could be a training facility as well, since there is a shortage of pathologists. How do they get that kind of training? And hopefully that can still be offered and put in place. It's obvious we need more pathologists
Yes.
to meet the growing demand.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but
Yes.
I'd still love to see that be a goal for the office if you can. And
Yes.
as soon as everything gets put together and you have the right kind of funding to take care of our own needs.
Yep. No, we're trying to get things put together the best we can. It's been busy.
Thanks.
Would you be able to email me the allocations of the autopsies that have been done in the past 2 years, like the current year and last year? Just saying, Dr. Nelson did 12 autopsies, so-and-so did 3.
Yes, I can do that.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay,
Great. Thank you.
appreciate you coming over, Dana. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any miscellaneous for the first session? I see Jessica, you popped in, huh? We outlasted you, huh?
Good morning, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I just have a request for a 5-minute executive session for qualifications of an applicant.
Okay. We can do that.
Okay.
The board is extending the executive session an additional 5 minutes until 11:32 a.m.
Okay, we're back from a executive session. No decisions were made. We'll adjourn our 10 o'clock meeting. Probably take a 5-minute break and then we'll fire up again, okay?